I have to say, what really strikes me is the large breadth of knowledge that you have that is obviously incorporated into your works. Your latest two novels, The Knight and the Wizard, which I really did enjoy. It was a wonderful adventure.
Thank you for reading.
Walking through that young man's incredible transformation from a young boy on our world into this hero knight and then wizard on another world. And I wanted to ask you, this was something of a departure for you from some of your other works. I mean, there's some similarities and some departures. First of all, only 2 books in the story, and it told the entire tale. And as you often done, it was told from a single viewpoint, that of our protagonist. What was the impulse to create this whole new world and carry us through into it?
Oh, goodness. I wanted to get away. I had done a whole bunch of books laid in the universe of The Shadow of the Torturer. I then did the Book of the Long Sun, and that was 4 books. I did the Book of the Short Sun, that was 3 books, and they're all basically laid in that same universe. I wanted to get away from that and get into something that was clearly and obviously a very different universe. And what I came up with was the notion of medieval chivalry having occurred in a universe without Christianity. The whole medieval life, of course, is shaped by Christianity, and you not only have knights, but you have monks, and you have bishops, and so on and so forth. And so I thought, what would it be like without that? And, without that, you're going to have, in Northern Europe at least, the Norse gods under one name or another. We're all familiar with Thor, but Thor is what the Scandinavians called him. The same god was called Thunor in Great Britain, for example. But it's the same thing, it's a difference in language. So I took off from there, and one always wants to connect with our own universe if we can. We need an Alice to go to Wonderland. If there were no Alice and everything were told by the Mad Hatter, it wouldn't be as good a book, right? And you'd probably never have heard of it, to be honest. So I thought I would take a young man and have him, in the old-time honored fashion, be exchanged by fairies for a young man in that universe. And off we went.
What's interesting about this is you seem to incorporate a lot of the concepts, the medieval concepts. The world is unique, and we'll talk about some of the structures that you place within the world, but one of the things that carries through is the idea that there is a behavioral ideal for people in there are various hierarchies and areas of responsibility. A knight behaves a certain way, should behave in a certain way. There is an ideal. And it's a universally acknowledged ideal. It's a universally known ideal. Where did that come from? Where did the concept of society accepting this as the ideal? People fall short.
This was very much the way the Middle Ages were. They had knights. They knew what a knight was. They knew what a knight was supposed to do. They knew how it was possible for young men to become knights. There was a normal path. There were also an abnormal path in which people who did not come up from the normal path but displayed the qualities required of a knight would be raised to knighthood. They knew what the aristocracy was supposed to do, which was something that Europe later forgot. And you see the aristocracy rotting in Europe, basically. But in the Middle Ages, it was not a rotten thing. aristocrats had a certain place in society. They knew what that place was. And for the most part, obviously, there are always slackers in every group and so on. But for the most part, they tried to do it. Kings were in the position that they were in to serve their people. Originally, of course, kings were elected. And the business of electing the king's son became so common that people came to accept it as a hereditary position. But originally, they were elected. You had the folk mute came together, and they elected the king. And there was still a great deal of that. The king was a sort of dictator who had been chosen by the people as a dictator to serve the people, to serve the nation and the crown, was a phrase that I used in the book there. So here we go. That's how it is.
And that a lot of this book is structured on the various levels of this universe you have created.
Yes.
Our protagonist enters at one level and interacts with beings from the levels above him and the levels below him.
Correct.
And in each place, the abilities and time itself functions differently.
Yes. But all that is direct mythology. You join the fairies in the fairy dance, and you spend the day or spend the night dancing with the fairies and banqueting with the fairies. And when you come back, you're no older, but everybody that you remember is now old or dead. And this is a persistent legend. So I took it to its logical sequences of a time running slower and slower as you went down through the world, and faster as you ran up through the world. So that the world of the Norse gods, of the Vow Father, who is Woden, who is Odin, and so on, there you can go and you can spend 20 or 30 years and come back and you've only been gone for a day or so. Then there's a still higher world which no one in the book reaches, in which time presumably moves even faster. And then at the very top there is Elysian, which is eternity.
These books I really did enjoy, and it struck me as a different structure, and even though we still have that, the narrator only can tell you what they know, and so there are limits to how much of the story they can tell and what has to be inferred. But it struck me as a little more direct, and I like the way that it goes back and forth between the language of the world he has adapted into and occasionally returning to the language and the phrasing of the young boy he was before he was transported.
Sure, because he's writing to his brother. He has a brother named Ben, and at the end of the book, he is in Elfreich, the elf world, with the Archangel Michael. And Michael tells him that he can get letters to Ben if he wants to do it, to reassure Ben of what's happened to him. And so he writes the book to explain to Ben where he's been and what's been going on.
And quite a bit does go on. It's a fascinating read, and it, as any Gene Wolfe book, pay attention, because just because it says something doesn't mean that's what is. There's always something on a second read or a third read that you can find that you may not have noticed the first time by if you weren't paying careful attention.
I hope so, yes.